shoppers are expected to spend more than $7 billion this Cyber Monday.
And many will be paying a sales tax online that they weren't charged before. And that is because the rules just changed in Minnesota last month. Ken from Oakdale asked what that change means for shoppers. Good question. Heather Brown adds it all up.
So when you buy online, do you notice how much you pay in sales tax?
I pay attention some.
Quite honestly, I don't pay much attention to it.
I don't pay as much attention to that as I probably should.
It used to be some companies wouldn't charge internet sales tax in states where they didn't have physical stores. Then the Supreme Court ruled that states could require all online sellers, except the smallest ones, to collect the tax.
It's a victory for traditional stores, which say they find it hard to compete against online behemoths like Wayfair and Overstock.com.
When people are shopping, they will notice that more online sellers are collecting the right amount of Minnesota sales tax.
Jenny Starr is an assistant commissioner with the Minnesota Department of Revenue.
So how does the state of Minnesota know that I purchased something from a company in Virginia?
So the sales tax is a trust tax for consumers.
The sellers collect the tax and pay them to the states. There is an exemption for out-of-state small merchants.
So if I buy something from a tiny little bike shop in Maine that doesn't sell a lot in Minnesota,
you may not see that particular seller collecting Minnesota sales tax.
How much sales tax you pay depends on where you ship to. In Minnesota, it's 6.875% plus any local taxes. So in Minneapolis, that adds up to 8.03%.
and in Minnesota, you don't have to pay sales tax on clothes.
Which is why I waited till I got back to Minnesota to buy some.
If we buy clothing from somewhere else, we're not going to get sales tax.
Nothing about that has changed.
It used to be the shopper themselves would pay the state if they weren't charged, but few did. The new rules are expected to bring in $8 to $13 billion to the states.
You have to pay that stuff in the store anyway.
Right.
Excuse me. There's still convenience of shopping in your pajamas on a computer at 2 o'clock in the morning because you can't sleep.
You know, at this juncture, online is probably going to be my first choice.
Heather Brown, WCCO 4 News.
Now, if you're wondering about sites like Amazon, under Minnesota law, those big marketplaces collect the tax on behalf of the sellers, unless, of course, the sellers do it themselves.
If you have a good question for Heather, please email it by going to WCCO.com/links.